should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. Preferably in a residential area.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing. You're listening to Hoppe Hour.
What up? What's happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe. And on the phone line, you can listen to him every morning on 106.7 The Fan in Washington, D.C. He is the co-host of the Junkies. JP is on Hoppe Hour. What's up, dude?
Hey, what's happening?
How you doing, man? How's everything been with the show?
It's going good, man. You know, it's kind of that time of year, though, where it starts to be a little bit of a lull. You're kind of waiting for the NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs. You do have the NCAA tournament, but then, of course, you got a week off till the Final Four games. So kind of a lull in the sports calendar. But other than that, it's going good.
What is your key to finding things to talk about on a sports show when it might be downtime in the sports world?
I don't know. I think you just look for anything with an interesting angle. Not that we talk a lot of MMA on the show, but you see a story like what happened with John Jones, him getting arrested for drag racing. You find that interesting. You try and come up with different angles, you know, how people talk to police officers. We got some police officers involved on the show today to give us their perspective. So you look for things that are interesting.
I did notice this. You guys are really big on supporting the cops, and I really appreciate that because I look up the cops. Like with your drinking event every year for Christmas, you guys say don't drink and drive. That's what I like about you guys. One of the many reasons is not a lot of shows show support to the cops, but you guys are big on that.
Well, the truth of the matter is it's an excuse to drink on the air. But, yes, We do support the cops, and they've been good to us, so it's been a great partnership. You know, you have the excuse to drink on the show, you take breathalyzers, get a ride home, and hopefully send home the message to never drink and drive.
How bad is the drinking and driving habit out there in Washington, D.C.? Because I moved here to Tampa Bay about a year ago, and, dude, there are drunk drivers everywhere in Florida. It's actually scary.
I think it happens all over the country. Because of the programs they have here, it supposedly has gone down the last couple of years, but there are always going to be idiots, particularly, you know, younger kids.
Yeah.
You go out, have a couple beers, you think you're okay. Next thing you know, you're right around that line at .08, and you can get pulled over, and you can do something stupid and kill somebody.
What's your take on, like, checkpoints?
Wow, you're going deep. Checkpoints. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with
Me
it.
too.
I know some people think that it's a hassle, and I'm sure they talk about privacy issues and things like that, but I'm okay with it.
To me, it just makes sense because there was this thing that happened last week, JP. This girl in Lakeland, which is like a suburb of Tampa, about 50 miles away. It's in the middle of nowhere, basically. She was periscoping while drunk driving, and there's video proof of it, and she got everything but jail time. And I don't know about you, dude, but I find that ridiculous because we act like we want to fix drunk driving, but if we're going to let people like her not get jail time, it's never going to get fixed, you know?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, drunk driving, distracted driving, it's all dangerous. The amazing thing is I think they're going a little too far with it. In New Jersey, they're talking about walking while texting being some sort of violation because people walk into people because they're staring at their phones the whole time.
I did notice that, too, because I went up to New York City last month when I sat in on a show on Opie Radio, and I swear to God, everybody was bumping into me, dude, in Times Square. They're all on their phones. I mean, would you say you're a guy that's an addict of your phone? Because I'm coming to realize, JP, I'm addicted to my smartphone. It's ridiculous.
I think most people are. I might actually be in the minority. First of all, I have an iPhone 4, so I'm behind the times. I get made fun of on the show all the time. I would say on our show, we're a four-man show. Most of the guys are pretty addicted to the phone. I'm the type of guy who actually will put away my phone at night for a couple of hours. In fact, I was supposed to do an interview with you a week ago, and I forgot because I put my phone down and I didn't look at it for another 2 hours.
See, dude, I think you are the opposite of most people. I have to look at my phone so that I can be happy with myself. It's this weird thing, JP, where I almost live for my podcast and my job here at The Bone, and I'm trying to find other things to do in life because, dude, I get addicted to the approval on Twitter, man. It's weird.
Well, the truth of the matter is there's a significant age gap between you and me. I don't know your exact age.
22.
I'm 45, all right? I grew up in an era where I didn't have a cell phone. I actually could just go out and live my life and be fine. Major advantage to you and your generation when it comes to picking up chicks, though, because we actually used to have to call them and talk to them on the phone and convince them to go out with us. Now you can just set up Tinder, text, do whatever the heck you want, and you got a shot.
What was your go-to line back in the day, JP, to get with the chicks?
I don't know that I had a go-to line. It was mostly have a lot of beers, get drunk, and hopefully somebody would be stupid enough to hook up with me.
So you basically were the one where you had to get them drunk because basically you didn't have a chance.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, I'm a married guy, and back in the day, it wasn't like I was slaying a bunch of chicks. I had a girlfriend in college for a couple of years, so it wasn't necessarily like that. But during those little periods of time where I was single, that was the game plan.
How often would you and Cakes, EB, and Lurch all go out drinking? Were you guys as close as you make it seem on air?
Yeah, I mean, as life has progressed and we've gone through marriage, and I'm divorced and remarried, and we've had, 4 guys, I think a total of 10 kids. Actually, I do know. I shouldn't say I think. We have 10 kids between the 4 of us. Life has changed. But we grew up together. Cakes and I went to high school together. Lurch and EB went to high school together. And then we kind of went our separate ways in college, although EB and I lived together at the University of Maryland for a couple years. We would hook up with Cakes somewhat frequently, a couple times a year. He was at Towson, which was about an hour away. Jason kind of bounced around in college. We'd see him every once in a while, hang out in the summers. And then through the show, of course, particularly when we were a nighttime show, first 5 years of our show, it was almost like being part of a fraternity or something, because we would do our show until 11 and often have appearances midnight till 2 a.m. and get paid to hang out and drink beers. Obviously, we were hanging out a lot more back then, pre-kids, pre-marriage, and things like that. It slowed down, but back in the day, we used to get together quite often.
Would you say you guys are closer now or more apart since you guys have marriage and things to deal with and you're not single dudes anymore?
You know what? I would say this. A lot of people say on our show, one thing about our show that's, I think, unique, obviously, is the relationship we've had for life. I like to say we were friends before it and we'll be friends after it. We've been doing the show now for 20 years, celebrating our 20th anniversary on the air this year. A lot of people say, you and EB fight a lot. Really, it's almost like a brother relationship. He was the best man at my wedding. That's always going to exist. You may not get together as often because as life progresses, and you'll see this when you get married, you have kids, you're chasing them around all the time. In fact, we used to play on a soccer team together. We played on a soccer team together really until we're almost 40 years old. What happened is our kids start playing sports. Then the weekends are gobbled up by you chasing around your kids and taking them to their events. So it's harder to get together.
How mad have you gotten at them? I know you guys have gotten into fights on air, but has it ever gotten so bad, JP, where you guys have thought about breaking up the show, or deep down do you guys know that you guys are bros for life?
We're bros for life. It's never gotten to the point where we're going to break up the show. We have gotten physical on one occasion, but the reality is we've been fighting before the show. Maybe, stupid sports arguments. You know how you are when you go out with your boys. Forget about the radio. Forget about the podcast.
Yeah.
You're hanging at a bar, and you're talking about the quarterback on your team versus the backup quarterback. You may have a really, hot debate about it, and that's what happens on our show. I mean, I remember 20 years ago, we had an argument about who would you take, Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf. Believe it or not, I'm a Peyton Manning guy, but back then I was a Ryan Leaf guy.
Why?
And we went to war over this for a half hour.
What did you see in Ryan Leaf? Why did you think he'd be better than Peyton?
As stupid as it sounds, I believe the crux of my argument was Peyton looked like a dork.
That sounds like a thing you would say on air. I mean, Peyton Manning is a weird-looking dude, but you can't overlook how good he was back then, And
I think the fact that he never beat Florida was probably part of it. Maybe I was convinced by reading some scouting report back then that Ryan Leaf had a stronger arm. Been wrong many times, and we'll continue to be wrong in the future. But the fun thing about our show is we could go to war over a segment like that, and then you just hang out afterwards. It's no big deal.
Dude, aren't you kind of glad that Peyton's gone? I was getting very sick of him. The overexposure was just getting nauseating. It's like, you've had a great, all-time great career. Bye. That's how I feel.
Well, I think that he's definitely walking away at the right time because we saw really the last year and a half that the guy couldn't throw the ball very well anymore. He might be the smartest quarterback in the history of the game, but he had no arm left.
Dude, it was painful to watch him in the Super Bowl. It was like if you have a bad game playing Madden and you're playing against your friend that's really good, that's what it was like watching Peyton Manning play. He was just so average in the Super Bowl this year, dude.
There's no denying it, but don't sully him. Look, I've been a Colts guy my whole life. My father came to this country when he was 17 years old and eventually located in Baltimore. And so I grew up a Baltimore Colts fan, like Burt Jones, Lydell Mitchell, and these guys, old school. And then when they moved to Indianapolis, I kind of stuck with them. So Peyton became my guy, and I always was rooting for him, particularly because he would get tripped up by the Patriots so often and come up short. So I was happy he won another Super Bowl because he'll always have that on his resume, two-time Super Bowl winner. But I'm not going to deny the fact that he was throwing wounded ducks the last year and a half.
Now, going back to you being a Baltimore Colts fan back in the day, what is the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. sports scene like? Do both cities collaborate and root for each other? Because I know you guys are not far apart whatsoever. So what's it like down the Beltway?
Here's the simple answer. Washington doesn't give a rat's ass about Baltimore. Baltimore has a chip on its shoulder about D.C.
Why? Is it because one town is much more upper class and Baltimore's more like gritty?
I think there's some of that. I think also if you were to come here and get the papers, Washington teams are going to get most of the coverage.
Yeah, it just seems like Baltimore is a town, dude, that gets overlooked just because it's so average. I feel like it doesn't deserve all the hate it gets. Am I right about that?
Maybe so. Look, there's also differences. You know, you went to the blue-collar factory, and Baltimore is more of a blue-collar fan. Just think of TV shows. D.C., House of Cards. Baltimore, The Wire.
How accurate is The Wire when it comes to Baltimore?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't really drift into those neighborhoods in Baltimore when I go there. I tend to stay around Camden Yards and the bar areas, kind of the nice areas. So I'm going to say that it's accurate, but I really don't know because I try not to venture into that area.
Yeah, I love, like, whenever I talk to anybody about Baltimore, nobody brings up that there's good clam chowder there. Whenever you bring up Baltimore, you always bring up The Wire. It's kind of a bad mark on the town, you know?
Well, there's definitely great parts. I mean, the Inner Harbor is really nice. You have some of the best hospitals in the world. Johns Hopkins is a great university, but there's definitely areas that are shady.
Are you proud to be from Washington, D.C., or has there been a point over the, let's say, the last 10 years that you got a little bit sick of it, you know?
Wow, you know what? We were talking about this on the show. I think we take it for granted how special living in D.C. is. You know, so many tourists come to D.C. to see the cherry blossoms, to go see the monuments, and we actually were having a discussion on the show today after what happened at the Capitol building yesterday. When's the last time that we had gone to the Capitol? I think for Lurch Cakes and I, we hadn't been there since we were in elementary or middle school.
Why?
So
you're right there. Dude, you're right there. Why wouldn't you go? You're right there. I would love to go. Come on, man.
I don't know. It's just one of those things where we actually are about 3 or 4 blocks away from the Capitol where our office is right now. We're about 2 blocks away from Nationals Park and just, you know, maybe it's more than 4 blocks, but we could basically walk to the Capitol. You end up taking it for granted. I drive by the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and Jefferson Memorial every day. So I see it from a distance, and I just drive right by.
If the show were to end in, let's say, a year, would you hang out in Washington, D.C., or would you want to branch out to a different part of America?
Branch out for what?
Like, let's say move.
Career?
Yeah, move.
I think when it comes to career, if it came down to it, the 4 of us would take an offer. Hopefully it won't happen. We have our roots, though. We grew up together. We're from this area. We still have family in this area, so it would be tougher to move. See, when you're at your age, how old are you, Ryan?
22.
And you're not married, not even close. Don't get married for at least 10 more years, okay?
Dude, I just got out of a relationship. My first girlfriend, I had her for 7 weeks. Oh, my God, dude, she's fine and all, but I feel free that I dumped her. I literally feel free. I told her during an argument, I feel like we were married, and I can't imagine what it's like being married, dude. I have a lot of growing up to do, JP. I realize that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to denigrate anything. Look, if you find the right girl, and I've come around to this, find somebody that you're friends with and you can have fun with, because life's going to deal you a lot of curveballs, And at the end of the day, you want to hang out with somebody that you like. It sounds simple, but that would be my philosophy. But it's funny, as I've kind of grown up and got older, I wish my dad had this little talk with me. It didn't happen because I had a father who was from Italy, European dad. He never was like this touchy-feely dad. I don't know that he ever said I love you to me, but I wish he had told me this one day when I was like, college age, kind of growing up, 25, 26, 27. I wish he said, you know what, John Paul? I got married when I was 39. I married a 23-year-old. Why don't you wait for that?
What is it like when you get to marry a younger girl? How amazing is that?
Well, I am married to a girl who's 9-10 years younger than me. It's really 10 years, but I like to remember that it's 9 because there's like a month or two there where it's only 9 years.
Good job, dude. You've accomplished what every older dude dreams of. How proud are you, JP?
But going back to what I said, I don't want to be all Dr. Phil on you. Look, I get divorced, so I messed up the first time, although I have 2 beautiful kids from that relationship. But with my current wife, I found somebody who's my best friend. It sounds cheesy, whatever, but we like to do the same stuff. We love to go to boxing together. We work out together. We like doing stuff, and so we like hanging out. We like watching the same TV shows. We like going to movies together, I don't want to judge anybody's relationship. You'll see there's some people who get married. They hang out in the man cave. Their wife's upstairs. They don't really interact. Me and my wife like to hang out.
What I like about it, too, dude, is I knew nothing about it. I hate the people on radio or TV that have to take selfies at an event. Like, I would never know that you and your wife like to go to boxing events because you never take selfies about it. You seem like a dude that just keeps it low-key,
Yeah, I don't. I'm not going to lie. She probably does, though.
Does it drive you nuts? What do you think of social media now, because you didn't grow up with it?
Sometimes it drives me nuts because, look, I think it really is a generational thing. And some people get, really into it. I use social media to promote the show. I like to say, I like to pimp the product. So I already know, tomorrow on the show, we've got somebody from the Capitals on the show. We got the GM of the Nationals. I'll use social media to promote that to hopefully bring more listeners to our program so that we can continue to do this job, which is a dream job, versus going out and getting a real job. At one point in my life, I was on track to be a lawyer. I am a lawyer, actually. Went to law school. I could be chasing billable hours and doing something that I don't necessarily love. I get to hang out with my buddies and talk sports. So social media is a tool to kind of promote that.
Dude, how weird is it to think, JP, that you guys are the only replacement for Howard, the king of all media, that has gone on this long?
It's definitely a privilege. I'll go back to 1997 when we got offered the full-time job for the first time, and we took a night job. I remember just hoping, man, I hope it's just a 5-year run. I was hoping that I got 5 years out of it before I had to get a real job. And then you get to that 5 years, and we moved to mornings, got the first opportunity to do mornings. And again, you're just hoping, man, maybe hopefully we can get another 5 years out of this. Now we're at 20, and I'm kind of that same philosophy, just hope I keep going. So it's great. I mean, some of those shows that didn't succeed, I don't know if it was because marketing or whatever the case may be. I mean, Adam Carolla is a really successful guy. Adam Carolla is one of the guys who took over for Howard on the West Coast. I don't know why that didn't work. I can guess why the guy from Van Halen didn't work. He'd never done radio before. We had the opportunity to kind of take our following in D.C. and basically just do what we've been doing with that following and take over Howard's slot. So that's why I think we have been successful. We were set up for success, whereas those other shows may have been new to those markets.
Yeah, that's basically what EB told me. He said that you guys were blessed with the fact that you already had made a name for yourself in Washington, D.C., and that's why you guys have been so successful.
I think so. And you know what? Radio is one of these things where your listeners, this will sound a little cheesy, but you build a relationship with your listeners. You're sharing your life every day. And people get the habit of listening to you. I often think of Seinfeld, right? I was a big Seinfeld mark back in the day. I don't know what shows you grew up watching. But the last couple seasons of Seinfeld, it wasn't necessarily that good, but I stuck with it. I kept listening, kept watching every episode of Seinfeld. And kind of like that's my philosophy with our show. I don't know when we're going to hit our peak. If we've hit our peak, we may be long past our peak. But hopefully those listeners that grew up with us when we were in our 20s and then through our 30s, when we went from no kids, from no marriages, to having kids, they keep sticking with you because they're kind of growing up with you.
Are you going to ever reach that point where you're just overcompensating and you just don't want to put the mic up? Or do you think you'll retire at a point when you know it's time?
Wow, that's going to be a tough call. I think finances have a lot to do with it. You know what? That's one thing where I think that we're going to always stick together, but there may be a point where because people are in different situations in life, people may be in different financial spots, that you get to a point where you might say, hey, I'm going to walk away from it. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but, you know, some of us have younger kids, while somebody like Cakes, he got married when he was 24, 25. All right, Cakes got married after my first year of law school. It was very early on. Actually, we hadn't even started doing a cable access show or a weekend radio show, and Cakes was married. So he already has a kid in college. When his kids are all graduated from college, he may say, you know what, I'm ready to just move on to a chill part of my life, which, by the way, for him is going to consist of a lot of poker playing and gambling.
Now, since you guys all have kids, do you think you've maybe cleaned up the show over the years because you've had them and it would be hard to explain what Dad said this morning?
I think it happens from time to time. I don't think it's a huge difference, but there are certainly things that we don't do nowadays that we probably did 10 years ago, because you start realizing you have teenage daughters. And also, as you just kind of age, look, we used to have a spring break party every year. It was kind of a signature event that we did each year. It was kind of like an MTV style spring break. We would have a bikini contest, and we would do all these events, and we'd have over 1,000 people each year. Great time. But at one point, we're 40 years old, and we're on stage with these people just grinding, and we used to do an event. See, I don't know. I guess on the podcast I can say anything, right?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
All right, so there's an Urban Dictionary term called the emerald.
I'm looking it up.
We found out what the emerald was. You know, Emeril Lagasse, the famous chef, he's the BAM guy, right?
Yeah.
So at one point, we were doing what we called the emerald contest, where we had guys grabbing yogurt, throwing it at chicks' faces, and going, bam. And you realize, you know what? You realize I'm 40 years old. I got 2 kids. I got like a teenage daughter. What the hell am I doing?
Yeah, dude, it's weird. My show isn't as edgy as that, but I mean, I'll say that Kim Kardashian's a dumb bitch. And it's weird because everybody that I know listens to it. Isn't it weird to think that if we're outspoken, anybody at any time can hear that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, for the most part, our show is no holds barred. There are a couple times, you know, I can think of something recently. We do a Throwback Thursday clip of the week now, and one of my buddies asked me about this, and I was like, I can't believe you figured it out. This is something that came up just a few weeks ago. So we're celebrating 20 years on the air, and our station has sold different sponsorships, and part of that deal is they're doing a Throwback Thursday clip of the week. Well, a few weeks ago, the 3 choices included one about Lurch's past. My guess, although I never saw it, and my buddy asked me this, and I said, you know what, you're probably right, is that Lurch's clip would have won hands down. It was the funniest title, it was the funniest segment, but believe behind the scenes, because he didn't want that out there forever, he said, you know what, regardless of what happens, that's not winning this week.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you guys mad at him for doing that, or is there a point where you guys sort of grew up and went, whatever, dude, let's move on from that clip, you know?
Yeah, I think you just get over it. Look, we've been, I don't know how many shows we're doing. We've done thousands of shows. So you know how it works. You're doing a podcast. You've got a couple guests on the show, whatever, you're putting out a couple segments. We're doing 13 segments every day, 13 segments, 5 days a week. I think you can get over one segment.
What is one time? Have you guys ever been suspended or fined? Was there ever a point, though, where you guys got in major trouble?
We haven't been. We've been lucky. We've never been suspended. We've never been fined. Luckily, we have producers that watch our back at this point, particularly when it comes to language. The hardest part to deal with nowadays really is relationships with not necessarily sponsors, but teams. Like, we're on a sports station now, right? When we were on a hot talk station, it was a lot easier because we didn't have to worry about anything. Well, we're now in the home of the Nationals, the home of the Washington Wizards, the home of the Washington Capitals. And we're not a censored show by any means, but every once in a while, you'll say something that goes too far in their eyes. And what happens is they'll call management and say, look, you guys are covering us, you're carrying us, you're supposed to be promoting us, and here's what your guys said about us. So that's the only tricky thing.
Has there ever been a time where one of you guys said a thing like that and you had to dump it just because you were nervous?
Not really about the teams. I mean, usually like those type of discussions were really the only thing that we get dumped, and it's just weird, is usually, sexual comments that we don't realize at the time you can't get away with anymore. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you could get away with a lot more on the radio, on regular terrestrial radio, that you can't get away with now. And we used to do a lot of wild things. We used to do a lot of things with porn stars on the show. We had a relationship with a strip club in Baltimore that used to bring these porn stars on, fairly regularly, 3-4 times a year. And we used to do some crazy stuff. We can't get away with some of that stuff nowadays.
Do you miss those days of good old shock jock radio?
You know what we do? I don't know. We do some things from time to time that I guess would be in the genre of shock jock.
I hate that word.
I don't necessarily miss that. I think what's funny about the Junkies, and look, we're 4 regular guys. In fact, first ever slug line of our show, going back 20 years ago, the program director of WJFK 106.7, which had Howard Stern in the mornings and Don and Mike middays and G. Gordon Liddy. So he gave us this slug line, and he wanted us to drive it home every commercial break. The slug line was 4 regular guys talking sports. And that really is what we are. We're just 4 regular dudes that got a radio show, and we have fun. The funny thing about it is I don't think the 4 of us are big strip club guys. I mean, just my philosophy is, what do you get out of that? You go there, you look, you hand out a couple dollars. I mean, you're not really getting that much out of it.
Dude, it's sad. I don't like going because I have a good heart, and I go, oh, man, why does she need this money? Why is she doing it this way? I'm a weird guy like that. You know?
What went wrong with her life? What happened to her mom and dad?
And it's not even that good. You can't even do that much. Like, they tease you for like $50, and then they're like, all right, time to reload. And you're like, I just spent $50,
Yeah, the idea of a strip club is always better than going to a strip club.
I worked this gig last summer, and it was during the day. Dude, the girls during the day are a different breed, man. It's ridiculous.
They got to be rough, right?
Especially here in Florida, dude. I mean, you can imagine. Dude, there's a club on every corner in Tampa Bay. We're like the home of clubs, dude.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Lakeland, Florida. Or growing up, kind of the college years, EB on the show was a huge – he's actually – if you follow him on Twitter, you can see he's a big photography buff. And back in the day, my brother went to the U. He went to Miami, and we would go on a spring break sometimes. EB wanted to go to spring training and take pictures, and eventually I really would just kind of hang out and want to end up at Miami for a few days, go drinking with my brother and his buddies. And we hit a lot of the cities of Florida, man. Look, Florida has some nice spots. Miami's nice, but – you must admit, Florida's got a lot of rough spots.
Dude, Florida's crazy, man. I can't describe it. I'm from Chicago. When I went back to Chicago for Christmas, you don't realize how bland the Midwest is and how bland cities are with culture, like let's say a D.C., Chicago, Los Angeles is, or like a New York City, until you come to a transplant area like Tampa where everyone's from somewhere else, dude. It's so much fun down here. Every day is a new adventure in Tampa, bro.
Yeah, Tampa's not bad. We went to a Super Bowl in Tampa years and years ago. The one thing I do remember is it wasn't a city that was prepared for a Super Bowl at the time, and we had to wait for cabs for like 45 minutes when we went out at night. What was it, Ybor City?
Yeah, dude, this whole area is not prepared for traffic. We have one of the worst traffic setups in all of America. The Howard Franklin, the bridge that goes from St. Pete to Tampa, dude, it's probably up there with Washington, D.C. traffic,
Yeah, that's the one, look, we've been doing morning show now for years and years, and to be honest, I've never gotten used to it. I hate waking up at 4:30. The only advantage is I don't deal with traffic.
But do you ever wake up and you're fresh, or is it every morning where the alarm goes off and you're like, God damn it,
Yeah, I'm a guy who needs the alarm. There are some people that say they wake up before their alarm. I need to get up, shower, shave. I need about a half an hour to kind of wake myself up. I had this moment. So we did nights for 5 years, and then we moved to mornings. and it was early on in the morning show where I hit my alarm, then hit snooze again. Next thing I know, I'm rushing. I got to get out of the house. No time to shower, just brush my teeth real quick, throw on my clothes, get in the car. And I still was groggy, and I get on a main road about 2 miles from my house, and I just fly right through a red light because I'm so groggy and unaware. And I realized at that moment, you know what, I need that hot water in my face for 5 or 10 minutes. I need that shower and shaving time to just kind of get up.
Have you ever had it, though, where you've literally had no sleep the whole night but then had the best show, or do you need your sleep?
Hard to judge what is a best show. I am not the most disciplined guy, so when there's like NBA finals, I'll end up staying up till like 1 a.m. I don't know if there's any correlation to good show or bad show. There's 4 guys, so you're just 25% of the equation anyway. It's probably better to be well rested. The dynamic on our show is 4 guys. Jason is very disciplined. He goes to bed at 8 or 8:30. I don't know how he does it. I think EB Cakes and I are all kind of 10:30 guys, which means you get about 6 hours, which is never enough, but you get used to it.
Is it ever weird, though, when you might be on like 2 hours of sleep and you're talking into the mic and you like go, oh, wow, I'm on the radio right now? Because I've had that when I do my podcast where you're talking and you go, oh, my God, I'm on the air because you're so tired, you know?
Yeah, I don't know that happens. The only thing that's popped into my head, though, is we went out to Vegas years ago for the World Series of Poker, and the other guys are big into gambling, and EB is up basically all night playing poker, and he did the show when the next day, and it was almost like he was manic throughout. He went beyond the point of being tired where he just was like a maniac. I don't know if he was hopped up on like energy drinks or something, but that type of thing can happen.
And there's that thing, too, where you are so tired that Red Bull can't do anything. It almost makes you more tired because your body just shuts down and caffeine doesn't work anymore, you know?
Look, I don't want to make it seem like it's a difficult thing. It's not digging ditches. There's a million jobs that are harder than what we do. At the end of the day, we're just talking into a microphone.
Well, I worked on a morning show. I worked for Rover's Morning Glory for about 3 months last year in Cleveland. And, dude, getting up was hard, too. But what I hated was you would want to do something with the day, but it's going on like 2:45 in the afternoon, and you need to nap. So then you nap, and then you wake up, and it's 6 o'clock. And then that 4-hour nap that was on accident, JP, ends up ruining your sleep, you know?
Oh, yeah, it's a vicious cycle. I've been in a bad cycle now for a couple of weeks. I had a week off. Like spring break a few weeks ago. So I get into a routine where I'm staying up a little bit later, I'm sleeping in, and then when that Sunday rolls around, you know you got to wake up at 4:30 on Monday morning, it's dread. And you can't all of a sudden just dial it back and go to bed at a normal time, and then what happens is exactly what you said. You get through the show, you drive home, you have lunch, do whatever, maybe you work out, whatever you're going to do, and then eventually you just, especially when you don't have anything going on at home, the nap is almost inevitable. You end up I never take a 4-hour nap, but if I end up taking an hour and a half, 2-hour nap, I'm not going to fall asleep at 9 the next night. Impossible. So then I go to bed 10:30, 11, 11:30 again, and then the cycle just continues and continues. We've said on our show, we've probably just given up years of our life. I'm sure that is an inevitability.
Well, also, it's like, what else are you going to do? Because if you're so tired, it's not safe to drive, so you might as well nap. That's how I view it. If I'm so tired and I can't even drive, JP, without being tired, that's when I go, okay, I'll just nap, you know?
That's brutal. But when you were doing the Rover show, what was kind of your bedtime and when were you getting up?
I would go to bed at 9:30-ish and then get up at 5:30 because I live 10 minutes to 20 minutes away.
A ton of sleep.
I know, it was beautiful.
What you having? 9:30 to 5:30?
Well, because he began at like 6:40. He would begin at 6:40 and go till 11. It was beautiful, dude.
Man, those are cush hours if you ask me.
Well, because what time do you guys begin, 5 or 6?
We start at 10 of 6. So we're just a little bit over 4 hours, 10 of 6 until 10.
Yeah, Rover doesn't begin till like 6:40, so I would get there at like 6:15 every day, jacked up. It actually wasn't that bad looking back on it now, you know?
I mean, you get 7-8 hours.
But I don't sleep well, dude. I have the weirdest dreams. I had a dream last night that my car flipped over like let's say Fast and Furious, and I landed safely with my cat in my hand, dude. I have some weird dreams, so I don't sleep well, JP. I'm a really weird guy, you know?
Yeah. Actually, dreams, though, is something that's kind of like, going back to what you were talking about earlier about, like, topics on the show. Let's see, something like that could be a topic on your podcast. That's something that we would probably work with. Like, what the hell does that dream mean?
I don't know, dude. I think it means I'm too obsessed with my cat because it's the one thing I live with. I had my girlfriend sleeping over a lot the last few weeks, but now that I dumped her, it's weird going back, you know? Like, do you know what I mean? Isn't it weird when you're in a relationship and then all of a sudden you're single and you go, I have all this free time, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, I've been married now for a while, but there was a little brief window when I was single, and it's definitely different. But going back to kind of the sleep, I mean, it does drive everything. There was a period of my time where I felt very motivated. I had a buddy who's a lawyer, right? So I'm a lawyer, and all of a sudden we moved from nighttime to mornings, and you're done to 10. And kind of like you said, well, what the hell are you going to do with your day? And I used to actually play basketball from 11 to 1. I had kind of a regular game 3 times a week, but still, then it's still 1 o'clock. And what the heck are you going to do with your time? Some people play golf, and I had this buddy who pitched me this idea of like, hey, maybe we can work together and practice for the law. And I did that for a little while, like a very brief window, and then I realized I don't need to be doing this. What the hell am I doing? I'd rather be taking a nap.
What do you do in your free time to not burn out? I've actually been meditating a lot, dude, and that really helps, you know?
Dude, you're way deeper than me. I don't know. I'm a big fan of TV. So recently I binge-watched House of Cards.
What a boring
show.
show.
That I'll watch, so I'll catch up on it. A lot of times I can't watch shows. Seems that a lot of shows start at 10, right? So I've kind of gotten into Walking Dead, but I almost never watch it live, so I'll end up watching it the next day while I'm eating my lunch.
Dude, I am a geek for TV shows. Anything on HBO or Showtime is usually good, you know?
Yeah, I've watched pretty much all of them. House of Lies, Californication, which I think is done. You're right.
Ray Donovan, do you watch that?
I've watched Ray Donovan, yeah.
I hated the last season. I hated Katie Holmes.
Do you remember Sully on the show?
Yeah.
James Woods played Sully. Interesting fact. So we do a poker tournament each year, the Junkies Poker Open. We've done it at the Borgata and in Atlantic City. And this year we're actually doing a special 20th anniversary edition in Vegas at the Aria coming up on June 4th. Anyway, a couple of years back at the Borgata, I brought my wife up because you get a couple nights at a nice hotel, and she ends up playing in Poker Open. And she got bounced out by Sully Sullivan. James Woods actually played in our Poker Open.
Good old James Woods. I'm a young guy, so I just know him when he was a cartoon character on Family Guy. That's how young I am, JP. I don't know him for anything else he's ever done, you know?
Well, you know him as Sully on Ray Donovan.
Dude, that's a good show, you know? Before I let you go, where do you want to see yourself in 5 years, man?
You know what? We've gotten to the point now where we just kind of want to continue doing what we're doing. I think we're really content where our career is at this point. We have the morning show. We also do some TV work. In the fall, we did a show called Geico Football Central, which was, mostly Redskins-related / around the NFL type show. I also do a weekend show for Comcast Sportsnet here in D.C. called #Redskins Talk. So we got kind of some side gigs on TV. We got the radio show. In the fall, we're really busy. During football season, we do pregame shows. So pretty kind of content with where we're at, whereas 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I think we were a little more ambitious trying to accomplish more things in our career. There was a period of time where we were syndicated at night. But now, having a successful morning show in D.C., it feels pretty good.
Where can people find your work online and on the radio?
Well, there's many ways to kind of get to our show, but you can go to thesportsjunkies.com. There's play.it if you want to check out podcasts. You can stream a million ways, whether it's through iTunes, radio.com. But check out thesportsjunkies.com if you'd like. Follow me on Twitter, even though I'm not a big Twitter guy, although, like I said, I like to pimp the product. Mine is @GlassJoeJP. The reason why, this might be before your times, used to be a game called Punch-Out. Did you ever play Punch-Out?
Yes, Mike Tyson Punch-Out.
Mike Tyson Punch-Out.
Love that game.
First opponent was Glass Joe, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the cool things we did on our show, or maybe not so cool as I look back on it, is 10 years ago I actually fought a pro boxing match. I had this crazy idea. I went to a boxing match and I was like, I want to do this. And through the radio show, I was able to make it happen. The hook was I didn't want it to be some goofy celebrity thing with headgear. I wanted to fight a pro as a pro. And so I went through the whole thing. I trained. The show business part was fantastic. Announcing on the show was great. Probably brought 2,000 to 3,000 fans to a boxing event that wouldn't have been there. The problem is, when I went in the ring, I fought a pro, and he kicked my ass. That's
How bad did it hurt the next day?
Joe JP.
How bad did it hurt the next day, dude?
It actually didn't feel that bad the next day, except for the fact that I got stopped with 1 second left in the first round, and so that was embarrassing. I felt like I choked. I trained for 7 weeks. I went through rounds and rounds of sparring. It hurt a lot more during the training, and during the fight, I'd actually gotten in such good shape that I wasn't even tired when they stopped the match. Unfortunately, I choked, man. It was different. I fought without headgear, went from 16-ounce gloves, which you use in sparring, to 8-ounce gloves. I got caught with the right hand early in the first round, and I lost my legs. And plus, I sucked. You can't train for 7 weeks. It doesn't matter how much you train. Train for 7 weeks and fight, even if it's a tomato can, somebody who's had 9 professional fights and fought as an amateur for 10 years and expect to win.
Well, dude, I will say this to anybody that has not heard the Junkies. Your show does not suck. You guys are one of the reasons why I'm in radio. I'm a geek, and I found free FM about 10 years ago, and I've been listening ever since. So it was a lot of fun having you on Hoppe Hour, dude.
Dude, appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
All right, thank you, JP. Have a good night.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.